Coronavirus is affecting everything, including one pretty big thing: the environment. Let's have a look at the global picture right now. Around the world, airports, roads, cities, they're closing down and their emissions are falling. In New York, emissions of the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide are down 5 to 10%. In China, emissions were down about 25% at the start of the year, and the amount of coal used in the country's power industries has fallen off a cliff. And in Europe, satellite images have shown over northern Italy emissions of nitrogen dioxide fading away. That's a gas that can cause respiratory disease, and it also causes acid rain. But here is the big question: will these dips that we are seeing now actually have a long-term effect on the environment and climate change? To answer that, let's look at why emissions are falling. A big thing is that governments have introduced lockdowns, so we aren't travelling anywhere near as much as we used to. That's happened in China, India, the UK, Italy, Spain, France, and transport makes up nearly a quarter of carbon emissions. There are fewer planes in the sky, and that matters because
hour for hour, flying is the fastest way to heat the climate, so all the flights that are being reduced are saving a lot of carbon.
Another key reason that emissions have dropped comes from industry, which makes up nearly a fifth of global greenhouse gas emissions. Many factories and businesses have closed their doors, and their carbon emissions have fallen with them.
Quite likely more than 10% of total oil consumption globally has been wiped out, and it has meant that many cities are measuring the best air quality that they've ever seen.
That's also had a huge impact on the economy and has meant many people are losing their jobs. So it's really not the way that anyone wanted to lower carbon emissions. At the moment, researchers think that once you take our recovery from the pandemic into account, we might see a dip in around 0.3% in our carbon emissions in 2020. So even though there is this dip in emissions right now, you've probably figured out the catch, which is that when life goes back to normal, well, so will emissions. People will go on long-distance holidays and coal-fired power stations will fire up again, surely. And it's not the first time we've seen a temporary dip in recent history.
The global financial crisis in 2008 also caused a significant temporary drop in emissions.
But then lots of countries started pumping out more carbon emissions again as they tried to rally their economies, like in China.
The Chinese government started the largest and most polluting economic stimulus program in history, using billions of tons of steel and cement to build, causing a spike in China's air pollution levels and in China's carbon dioxide emissions. That could mean that a crisis like this can increase emissions in the years to come.
But there's another way that the pandemic could be affecting the climate negatively. One is cancelling big climate conferences. The UN's COP26 conference, scheduled for this year, has been postponed, and climate scientists are worrying that they can't physically get out and about to get the data that they need to do their work. But there is some optimism.
This crisis could be a big opportunity to reduce emissions in the longer term. For a lot of people, there's no reason to go back to commuting to an office every day.
The pandemic has made us think about how and where we get our food. The looming threat of lockdown emptied some supermarket shelves. Might this unfamiliar sight of empty shelves revive a waste not, want not mentality? And if it does, maybe we won't end up wasting 1/3 of the world's food like we normally do. But perhaps more important than any of that is the impact that coronavirus is having on us as a community.
One thing that we see is that people are willing to help and willing to make big changes and even sacrifices when it's necessary to protect public health. It gives me a lot of hope that we have the capacity to tackle the climate crisis.